Great morning, grade 4 students. Once again, welcome to our scientific class with Miss Shara. Let's read our work plan for today. Science bits, recall on water cycle, discussion on effects of water cycle, activity on effects of water cycle, thumb it. Let's learn a bit about science. That was amazing, yes? So what you have seen in the video is a rainstorm or downburst. In meteorology, a downburst is a strong ground level wind system that emanates from a point source above and blows radially. That is, in straight lines in all directions from the point of contact at ground level. When the downdrop hits the ground, much like a stream of water coming out of a faucet and hitting the sink, it spreads out rapidly in all directions. It can also be called as tsunami from heaven. In this one, a microburst is a small column of exceptionally intense and localized sinking air that results in a violent outrush of air at the ground. Sometimes, these microbursts are accompanied by a significant amounts of precipitation. This meteorological phenomena can cause serious issues for planes. In 1985, a microburst caused 137 casualties and 28 injuries after a domestic Delta Airlines flight encountered the intense downdraft while approaching Dallas Worth International Airport. With that, let us read our learning targets. Let me read it for you. First, I can recall the processes involved in the water cycle. Second, I can describe the effects of the water cycle. So how do you think downburst happen? How do you think what will happen with the water that comes down from the clouds? So we are going to learn that today. So let's recall. What is water cycle? What are the processes involved in water cycle? Let's look back. Water cycle. Earth is called the blue planet due to the abundance of water. About 70% of the surface of the Earth is covered by water, and it is the only natural substance that can be found on Earth in all three states: liquid, solid, and gas. Due to this unique property, water can be found just about everywhere. So water cycle is also known as the hydrologic cycle. This is the continuous movement of water from the oceans to the atmosphere to the earth and on again. These are the stages of the water cycle. We have evaporation and transpiration. When you combine them together, it is called evapotranspiration. Next is condensation. Then we have precipitation. And the fourth stage is the surface runoff, the infiltration, and then accumulation. Now let's look at the water cycle processes one by one. Stage 1, evaporation. It is simply the process by which liquid turns into gas. When heat energy is applied to raise its temperature to 100 degrees Celsius or 212 degrees Fahrenheit. The melting of an ice cube is an example of evaporation. Evaporation of acetone, which is usually used for removing nail paint, is another everyday example of evaporation. So this is how evaporation happens from the sun. Then there's heat energy and the water is warmed up and it will evaporate. So warm ocean surface goes up, rising into water vapor. Alright, the next is transpiration. We are still in stage 1. It is the process by which in green plants, forests, and all vegetation covers also release moisture into the air. So transpiration is the loss of water from a plant in the form of water vapor. Water is absorbed by roots from the soil and transported as a liquid to the leaves via xylem. Okay, so transpiration is the process of water loss from plants to stomata. So if you will look at the picture, look at how water vapor escape from pores under leaves. You can try this. If you cover an entire leaf of a green plant, you will notice that the plastic bag will look foggy after a while. So it seems like they are also sweating. So evaporation, if the water in the soils change to gas as the ground surface warms up, just like in the ocean. Stage 2 is the process by which water vapor or gas in the atmosphere turns into water or liquid state. It is the opposite of evaporation. Condensation is the process where water vapor becomes liquid. It is the reverse of evaporation where liquid water becomes a vapor. It generally happens when vapor in warm air encounters a cool surface, but condensation doesn't need a soil surface to take place, as it can occur when a warm packet of water vapor encounters colder gases. Condensation happens one of two ways. Either the air is cooled to its dew point or it becomes so saturated with water vapor that it cannot hold any more water. Stage 3 is precipitation. It is simply the various forms present in the atmosphere, usually falling as snow, rain, sleet, and hail. Precipitation is water released from clouds in the form of rain, freezing, rain, sleet, snow, or hail. It is the primary connection in the water cycle that provides for the delivery of atmospheric water to the earth. Stage 4, infiltration. It is the process by which precipitation or water soaks into subsurface soils and moves into rocks through cracks and pore spaces. As we mentioned before, the bulk of rainwater and melted snow end up infiltrated. But where does it go in the ground? Water can be absorbed by the soil and may stay in the soil for a long time, until it gradually gets evaporated. If there is a lot of vegetative cover or green plants, the infiltrated water can also be absorbed by plant roots and later transpired. Infiltration occurs in the upper layers of the ground, but may also continue further downwards into the water table. Okay, next is runoff. We are still in the stage 4. So precipitation that falls to the ground and find their way on the ground surface into puddles, streams, rivers, etc. So when the soil cannot absorb any more of the water, then it becomes surface runoff. So runoff is precipitations that did not get absorbed into the soil or did not evaporate, and therefore made its way from the ground surface into places that water collect. Runoff causes erosion and also carry chemicals and substances on the ground surface along to the rivers where the water ends up. It can cause water pollution too. So all those water that cannot be infiltrated and percolated now, it goes into one place, usually in the ocean or rivers. So we call this as accumulation. Accumulation is the process of water collecting in rivers, lakes, streams, oceans, and other bodies of water. When water condenses and precipitates, it eventually runs off surface and collects again in bodies of water. From there, the water evaporates and the cycle begins again. So those are the 4 stages of water cycle. Now let's talk about the effects of water cycle on living things. Earth is truly unique in its abundance of water. Water is necessary to sustaining life on Earth and helps tie together the Earth's lands, oceans, and atmosphere into an integrated system. So we have precipitation, evaporation, freezing and melting, and condensation are all part of the water cycle, a never-ending global processes of water circulation from clouds to land to the ocean and back to the clouds. But what are the effects of water cycle on living things? So we have 2 positive and negative effect. What about the positive effect of the water cycle? Ocean current act much like a conveyor belt transporting warm water and precipitation from the equator towards the poles and cold water from the poles back to the tropics. Thus, ocean currents regulate global climate, helping to counteract the uneven distribution of solar radiation reaching Earth's surface. So one positive effect is it regulates environment's temperature. It also cools the environment. So when a liquid evaporates, its molecules convert from the liquid phase to the vapor phase and escape from the surface. The heat that it takes with it comes from the surface from which it evaporated. Since the molecule is taking heat with it, as it's leaving, this has a cooling effect on the surface left behind. So it makes our environment cooler. And also, it releases energy and warms the environment. So when the heat exchanges, it cools the environment, it warms the environment, and it can influence climate. So that is how it regulates environment's temperature. It can make it cooler or warmer. Second positive effect is continuously providing water supply to our water sources such as river, lakes, sea, etc. So fresh water on the land surface is a vital part of the water cycle for everyday human life. On the landscape, fresh water is stored in rivers, lakes, reservoirs, and creeks and streams. Most of the water people use every day comes from these sources of water on the land surface. Another positive effect is it makes food making process or photosynthesis for plants possible. Plants can synthesize food through photosynthesis only in the presence of water in their system. Water helps to maintain the turgidity of cell walls. Water is essential for the germination of seeds, growth of plant roots and nutrition, and multiplication of soil organisms. Now let's share. What will happen if there is too much rainfall and too little rainfall? Alright, of course, there will be a negative effects. So this time, let's look at the negative effects of the water cycle in the environment. If there is too much and too little. The destructive process of the hydrologic cycle can have harmful effects such as flooding or droughts in some parts of the earth. So, too much rain might cause heavy floods. Heavy rainfall can lead to numerous hazards. For example, flooding, including risk to human life, damage to buildings and infrastructures, and loss of crops and livestock. Landslides, which can threaten human life, disrupt transport and communications, and cause damage to buildings and infrastructures. So look at the effects of too much rain in the garden. It will wither the plants and decay some of the fruits, no? And then if too much water in the streets, look at what will happen in the community. So it's not only the infrastructures that are affected, but also the people that lives in it. How about if there is too little rain? It will lead to drought. So some organisms are very sensitive to changes in the water cycle. A prolonged drought can destroy a population of plants and animals. A drought is a period of time when an area or region experiences below normal precipitation. The lack of adequate precipitation, either rain or snow, can cause reduced soil moisture or groundwater diminish, stream flow, crop damage, and a general water shortage. When rainfall is less than normal for several weeks, months, or years, the flow of streams and rivers declines. Water levels in lakes and reservoirs fall, and the depth to water in wells increases. If dry weather persists and water supply problems develop, the dry period can become a drought. So you see, there will be no more plants. Okay, they will die. And then animals will die if there's no more plants to eat. And there's no more water for humans to use. So food grows where water flows. So let's explore more about the common problems in using water. We pump water for drinking, farming, and mining. We pollute for a number of reasons, which reduces the amount of drinking portable water or potable water. Okay, so how do you think irrigation is a huge deal in the water cycle? Irrigation is a way to water the crops and plants without rainfall. The big deal is it removes water from its natural source and it often causes leaching and runoff where it is used. The problem with irrigation is the human population has increased, which means we need more food. To make more food, we need more water. So the removal of the nutrients causes for farmers to use more fertilizer to keep their crops, so while the waterways become polluted. So if that happens, what will happen to the water cycle? So it can cause more negative effects, right? So let us read this quotation before we end our lesson. Even the smallest act of caring for another person is like a drop of water. It will make ripples throughout the entire pond. So one act of caring for another person, one act of caring for the water that we are using every day. Okay, it will make ripples throughout the entire pond. Can show other people that we, even though we are still young or you are still young, you can still have an effect throughout the pond or throughout the world. So let's try to share to other people how to care for water. And also, in this quotation, it shows that life can be difficult at times. And if each of us remembers to help each other every now and then, especially now that we are in ECQ, we'll be doing our part in making life more enjoyable for us and for everyone. To lead a happy and stress-free life. Reach down to those who need to be uplifted in life. So even the smallest act of caring can bring and give a lot to others. So you will do this in your Genio package in the assignment area. You will show how we can help minimize the bad effects of water cycle. So you can draw 3 to 5 ways or a way you can help minimize the bad effects of water cycle. You can use your notebook or a bond paper and then take a photo and send it to the assignment area. Please include your name. So another scientific day that was short and informative information about water cycle. So water cycle is an extremely important process because it enables the availability of water for all living organisms and regulates weather patterns on our planet. If water didn't naturally recycle itself, we would run out of clean water, which is essential to life. But there are two effects of water cycles. We have positive effects and negative effects. Now, nowadays, we can see a lot of negative effects of the water cycle due to the climate change. So, what can we do about this? One act of kindness can create a ripple of ripples in the pond. So, let's do our part. Let's conserve water to prevent more negative effects. So once again, this is Miss Shara saying, another scientific day, grade 4 students. Bye! See you next time.